Ladies and gentlemen, imagine for a moment that every challenge you faced was not merely a setback, but a stepping stone to a more profound version of yourself. Today, we gather not to celebrate comfort, but to embrace the dynamic, often untidy realm of growth that only emerges when we dare to step beyond our familiar boundaries. In our pursuit of excellence, the seed of success is planted not in the cozy corners of routine, but in the expansive, intimidating spaces of discomfort. Consider the brave pioneers, those who challenge the status quo, question the norms, and dare to dream differently. Their journeys remind us that true leadership and innovation stem from vulnerability, the willingness to face the unknown, and the courage to fail forward. As we explore the profound truth that growth starts when you get uncomfortable, let us open our hearts to the possibility that the discomfort we feel today is the precursor to the empowerment and transformation of tomorrow. In the spirit of continuous learning and evolution, I invite you to join me in this conversation, one where we shed our illusions of perfection and instead celebrate the raw, beautiful process of becoming. Together, we'll uncover how every misstep, every moment of uncertainty is an indispensable lesson on the road to achievement. Discomfort is often seen as something negative, something to avoid at all costs. We naturally seek comfort because it feels safe, familiar, and predictable. However, this very instinct to cling to comfort can become the biggest obstacle to personal growth and true transformation. When we peel back the layers of what it means to grow, it becomes clear that discomfort is not just a side effect of growth. It is its very foundation. Growth doesn't happen in places of ease or predictability. It emerges in the cracks of our comfort, where we are forced to stretch, adapt, and rethink who we are and what we believe is possible. Think about any meaningful change you've ever experienced, whether it was learning a new skill, overcoming a fear, or making a significant life decision. The process was never comfortable. You had to push through uncertainty, doubt, and often pain. This is because growth requires breaking old patterns and confronting the parts of ourselves that resist change. Our brains are wired to seek safety and avoid threats, and discomfort signals potential threats. But what if that discomfort is actually signaling opportunity? What if those moments when you feel uneasy, insecure, or challenged are exactly when you're on the brink of a breakthrough? The idea that discomfort is the birthplace of growth is supported by psychology and neuroscience. When we face new and challenging experiences, our brain creates new neural connections, expanding our mental capacity. This process is uncomfortable because it disrupts existing neural pathways and forces us to operate outside of habitual ways of thinking and behaving. Yet, this disruption is precisely what leads to learning and development. Staying in a comfort zone might feel good temporarily, but it keeps the brain in a loop of sameness, limiting creativity, resilience, and progress. Beyond the science, life itself teaches this lesson repeatedly. Consider athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, and leaders, people who have reached exceptional levels of success. Their journeys are rarely smooth. They endure setbacks, failures, criticism, and moments of deep uncertainty. These experiences are uncomfortable, even painful, but they are also what forged their strength and skill. Without discomfort, there is no growth. The discomfort forces them to adapt, improve, and innovate. It's in those moments of struggle that they discover reserves of courage, discipline, and perseverance they didn't know they had. Discomfort also challenges our identity. When we face difficulties, we often question who we are and what we are capable of. This can be unsettling, but it is a crucial part of growth. It invites us to redefine ourselves, shed limiting beliefs, and to embrace new possibilities. Every time we push through discomfort, we expand our sense of self. We become more resilient and open to change. This process of self-redefinition is uncomfortable precisely because it involves letting go of familiar stories and patterns that once gave us security. But it's necessary if we want to evolve and thrive. In practical terms, embracing discomfort means intentionally seeking out challenges that push your limits. It might mean taking on a new responsibility at work, starting a project you're unsure about, or having difficult conversations. It could be as simple as stepping into unfamiliar social situations or learning a new skill that initially feels awkward. Each time you do this, you build your discomfort muscle, making it easier to handle bigger challenges in the future. Over time, this transforms your relationship with discomfort from something to fear or avoid into a signal that you are growing. It's also important to recognize that discomfort is not the same as suffering or harm. Growth involves productive discomfort, moments that stretch us but don't break us. It's a fine balance between pushing yourself enough to grow and knowing when to pause, rest, and recover. Respecting this balance is key to sustainable growth. When we avoid discomfort altogether, we stagnate. But when we embrace it with awareness and intention, we open the door to endless possibilities. Ultimately, Understanding that discomfort is the birthplace of growth transforms how we approach challenges. Instead of shrinking away from discomfort, we begin to see it as a vital part of our journey. We stop chasing the illusion of a perfectly comfortable life and start welcoming the difficult moments as invitations to evolve. This mindset shift is powerful. It changes fear into curiosity, resistance into acceptance, and pain into purpose. In this way, discomfort becomes a teacher, guiding us toward our fullest potential. It shows us where we need to grow, learn, and stretch. And it reminds us that the most valuable things in life, our skills, relationships, and sense of self, are forged not in comfort, but in the fire of challenge. So the next time you find yourself feeling uneasy or uncertain, remember this: discomfort is not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're growing. And growth, after all, is what makes life meaningful and extraordinary. Comfort zones are like invisible cages that hold us back from realizing our true potential. They represent the familiar routines, habits, and environments where we feel safe and secure. While these zones provide a sense of stability and predictability, they also limit our ability to grow, innovate, and push beyond what we currently know. The truth is, comfort zones kill potential because they create a false sense of security that discourages risk-taking and exploration, both essential ingredients for personal and professional development. When we remain in our comfort zones, we avoid challenges that might expose our weaknesses or force us to confront uncertainty. This avoidance is natural because discomfort triggers stress and anxiety, which our minds interpret as threats. But what many don't realize is that these threats are often illusions, or at least temporary discomforts that lead to tremendous rewards. Staying inside the comfort zone may feel safe, but it's also a slow way to stagnate. Without challenges, our skills don't develop, our perspectives don't broaden, and our dreams remain just that, dreams. The problem with comfort zones is that they often create a cycle of complacency. When you do the same things day after day, your brain settles into autopilot mode. You don't need to learn new skills or think creatively because your current knowledge and habits suffice. This autopilot state reduces motivation and engagement, making life less exciting and fulfilling. It's easy to mistake discomfort for happiness or success, but in reality, it's a quiet form of surrender to mediocrity. On the other hand, stepping outside the comfort zone requires courage. It demands facing uncertainty, embracing failure, and pushing through fear. But it's precisely this willingness to confront discomfort that unlocks new opportunities. When you challenge yourself to try new things, whether it's speaking in public, starting a business, or learning a difficult subject, you expand your capabilities and confidence. Each step outside your comfort zone is a step toward becoming a stronger, more adaptable person. Consider the stories of people who have achieved extraordinary success. Almost without exception, their journeys involved stepping into unknown territory. They took risks, faced rejection, and endured setbacks, all signs that they left their comfort zones behind. By doing so, they discovered talents and strengths they never knew they had. Their growth came not from playing it safe, but from daring to fail and learn. Moreover, comfort zones limit creativity and innovation. When you stick to familiar patterns, you rarely challenge assumptions or experiment with new ideas. Innovation thrives in environments where uncertainty and discomfort exist because these conditions force you to think differently and solve problems in novel ways. Organizations that encourage stepping out of comfort zones tend to foster more dynamic creative cultures. The same principle applies to individuals. Embracing discomfort stimulates growth and inventiveness. Another important aspect is resilience. When we stay inside our comfort zones, we don't develop the ability to bounce back from adversity. Resilience is built through facing challenges head-on, learning from failure, and adapting to change. Those who habitually avoid discomfort miss out on these crucial lessons, which makes them more vulnerable when life inevitably throws curveballs. Growth and resilience go hand in hand, and both require moving beyond what feels easy and familiar. It's also worth noting that comfort zones can be different for everyone. What feels safe and comfortable to one person might be intimidating for another. The key is not to compare yourself to others, but to recognize where your personal boundaries lie and gently push against them. Growth happens in the space just outside your comfort zone, the place where you feel a bit uncomfortable but still capable of managing the challenge. This stretch zone is where learning is maximized and potential is unleashed. Of course, stepping outside your comfort zone isn't about reckless risk-taking or ignoring your well-being. It's about mindful growth. Choosing challenges that are meaningful and manageable while still pushing your limits. It's a balance between ambition and self-care. When you cultivate this mindset, discomfort becomes a signal to grow rather than a warning to retreat. Understanding that comfort zones kill potential shifts the way we approach life. Instead of avoiding discomfort, we begin to seek it as a sign that we're growing. We learn to value the lessons that come from failure, on struggle, we become more open to change and more willing to take the necessary risks that lead to success. Ultimately, breaking free from the comfort zone is about reclaiming your power. It's about refusing to settle for a life dictated by fear and inertia. It's about daring to dream bigger, take bold steps, and create a life of purpose and fulfillment. By stepping outside your comfort zone, you ignite your potential and open the door to a future filled with possibilities you might never have imagined. So, the next time you feel tempted to stick to what's familiar, remember this: comfort zones may feel good in the moment, but they quietly kill your potential. True growth, innovation, and success lie beyond the boundaries of comfort. It's there, in the discomfort, the challenge, and the unknown, that you become who you're truly meant to be. Fear is one of the most powerful emotions we experience, and it often feels like a barrier that stops us from moving forward. When we encounter fear, it triggers a fight or flight response, urging us to protect ourselves by avoiding whatever is causing the discomfort. At first glance, fear seems like the enemy of growth and progress, something to be conquered or suppressed. But if we look closer, fear can actually be a compass, an essential guide pointing us toward areas in our lives where growth and transformation are waiting. Fear is not a barrier, it's an invitation. The reason there feels so paralyzing is because it signals uncertainty and potential risk. We fear the unknown because it threatens our sense of safety and control. But it's important to remember that growth always involves stepping into the unknown. Every new skill, relationship, or achievement begins with uncertainty. If we let fear dictate our choices, we confine ourselves to what is familiar and safe, and in doing so, we shut the door to growth. Instead of resisting fear, we need to recognize it as a natural and necessary part of the process that points us toward opportunities for expansion. Fear serves as a signal that we are pushing our limits, moving beyond what is comfortable and familiar. This is exactly where growth happens. When you feel fear, it often means you are on the edge of your current capabilities, about to learn something new, develop a new skill, or challenge a limiting belief. If you ignore or suppress this feeling, you miss out on the chance to evolve. But if you lean into fear, you can harness its energy and transform it into motivation and courage. History and countless stories remind us that the greatest achievements often come from facing fear head-on. Innovators, leaders, and pioneers didn't let fear stop them. Instead, they used it to guide their actions. Fear helped them identify what was worth pursuing despite the risks. It sharpened their focus and fueled their determination. In this way, fear is less about danger and more about awareness. It helps you see where your edges are and where you can grow. One of the most common fears is the fear of failure. Many people avoid trying new things because they are afraid of failing and being judged. However, failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the journey towards success. Each failure teaches valuable lessons, helps refine strategies, and builds resilience. When you view fear of failure as a compass rather than a barrier, you begin to understand that failing is actually an important signal that you're stretching yourself. Avoiding failure means avoiding growth. Fear also teaches us about our values and priorities. When you feel afraid, it can reveal what matters most to you. For example, fear of public speaking might indicate a deep desire to connect with others or to share your ideas. Fear of change might highlight your need for security or belonging. By paying attention to these signals, you gain insight into your inner world and what motivates you. This awareness allows you to make more intentional choices about where and how you want to grow. It's important to develop strategies for working with fear. Rather than trying to eliminate it altogether, fear is a natural part of being human, and it will always arise when you're pushing towards something meaningful. Instead of avoiding fear, learn to sit with it, acknowledge it, and let it inform your actions. Techniques like deep breathing, mindfulness, and reframing your mindset can help you move through fear without being overwhelmed by it. Reframing fear as a compass also changes your relationship with discomfort. Rather than seeing fear as a sign that something is wrong or dangerous, you start to see it as a sign that you're on the right path. This shift in perspective empowers you to take action even when you feel afraid. It teaches you that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite fear. When you embrace fear as a guide, you open yourself up to growth in all areas of life. You become more willing to take risks, try new things, and explore unfamiliar territories. You develop resilience, creativity, and confidence. Over time, fear loses its power to paralyze you and becomes a tool for transformation. In essence, fear is not the enemy of growth. It is one of its greatest allies. It points you toward your edges, invites you to expand, and provides important feedback about what you value. When you learn to listen to fear and use it as a compass, you unlock new possibilities and move closer to becoming the person you are meant to be. So the next time fear shows up, Don't run from it or let it hold you back. Instead, thank it for guiding you, pay attention to what it's telling you, and use it as a map to navigate your growth journey. Fear is not a barrier, it's a compass leading you toward your greatest potential. Progress demands vulnerability. This idea may seem counterintuitive at first because vulnerability is often associated with weakness, uncertainty, or exposure to risk. However, if we look deeper, vulnerability is not only essential for progress, it is the very foundation upon which meaningful growth, connection, and innovation are built. Without vulnerability, progress remains superficial, limited, and short-limited. It's the willingness to be vulnerable that allows us to break through barriers, learn from mistakes, and embrace new possibilities. To understand why progress demands vulnerability, we need to first clarify what vulnerability really means. Vulnerability is about showing up authentically, exposing our true selves, including our fears, doubts, and imperfections. It means taking risks where the outcome is uncertain and being open to feedback, criticism, or failure. Vulnerability requires courage because it involves stepping into the unknown and risking judgment or rejection. But this courage is precisely what creates the conditions for growth. When we avoid vulnerability, protect ourselves by staying within safe boundaries, we hide our true feelings, mask our mistakes, and resist change because these actions shield us from discomfort. But this protective shell also becomes a prison. Without vulnerability, we cannot receive honest feedback, which is crucial for improvement. We miss opportunities to connect deeply with others, which limits collaboration and support. And we hinder our ability to innovate because trying something new inevitably involves risk and uncertainty. Progress, by definition, means moving forward, making improvements, reaching new goals, or evolving in some way. None of these steps happen without risk. Trying new approaches, learning unfamiliar skills, or confronting hard truths requires opening ourselves up to uncertainty and potential failure. This openness is vulnerability in action. It means admitting we don't have all the answers and being willing to learn. It means accepting that we might stumble, but continuing anyway. Without vulnerability, we stay stuck in routines and habits that feel safe but don't lead to true progress. The most successful leaders, creators, and innovators exemplify the power of vulnerability. They are willing to take risks and admit mistakes. They ask for help when needed and embrace feedback as a tool for growth. This openness fosters trust and inspires others to be vulnerable as well, creating environments where ideas can flourish and collective progress accelerates. In contrast, environments that discourage vulnerability tend to be rigid, stagnant, and resistant to change. Vulnerability also fosters deeper human connection, which is a critical element of progress. Whether in personal relationships or professional teams, authentic connections create trust, empathy, and cooperation. When people feel safe to be vulnerable, they share ideas more freely, collaborate more effectively, and support each other through challenges. This collective vulnerability fuels creativity and innovation as diverse perspectives come together to solve problems and push boundaries. Moreover, vulnerability helps us confront and overcome fear, the failure, rejection, or inadequacy that often holds us back from progress. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we acknowledge these fears instead of denying them. This acknowledgement reduces their power over us and enables us to take action despite the discomfort. Vulnerability becomes a practice of courage, where progress is the reward for facing uncertainty with an open heart. Progress through vulnerability is also deeply connected to self-awareness and authenticity. Being vulnerable requires honest self-reflection and the willingness to acknowledge areas for improvement. It means showing up as our true selves, not as curated versions designed to please or protect. This authenticity creates a solid foundation for meaningful progress because it aligns our actions with our values and passions. When progress is rooted in vulnerability and authenticity, it is sustainable and fulfilling. It's important to note that vulnerability doesn't mean recklessness or oversharing. It is about mindful openness, choosing when, where, and with whom to be vulnerable. It involves setting healthy boundaries while still allowing enough openness to foster growth and connection. This balance is key to harnessing the power of vulnerability without compromising our well-being. In practical terms, embracing vulnerability to achieve progress might look like asking for feedback even when it's uncomfortable, admitting mistakes publicly, or trying new things without guarantees of success. It might mean sharing your ideas in a meeting despite fear of criticism, or having difficult conversations that deepen relationships. Each act of vulnerability builds courage and resilience in a cycle of continuous progress. Ultimately, progress demands vulnerability because growth requires risk, authenticity, and connection. Vulnerability opens the door to new learning, deeper relationships, and creative breakthroughs. It transforms fear and uncertainty from obstacles into catalysts for development. When we embrace vulnerability, we unlock our capacity to move forward in ways that are meaningful, impactful, and true to ourselves. So as you pursue your goals and aspirations, remember this progress is not about perfection or invulnerability. It's about showing up fully, embracing uncertainty, and daring to be seen. In vulnerability, you will find the courage to grow, the strength to innovate, and the heart to create lasting change. Progress demands vulnerability, and it is through this openness that your greatest potential is realized. Adaptation only happens under pressure. This statement highlights a fundamental truth about growth and change. Real transformation rarely occurs when things are easy or comfortable. Instead, it is the challenges, pressures, and sometimes even crises that force us to rethink, recalibrate, and evolve. Pressure acts like a catalyst, accelerating change by pushing us beyond our habitual ways of thinking and acting. Without this external or internal push, we tend to settle into routines that limit our potential and prevent us from adapting to new realities. At first glance, pressure can seem purely negative, stressful, overwhelming, and something to avoid. But pressure, when understood correctly, is not the enemy. It is a natural and necessary part of the growth process. Imagine a tree growing in the wild. When strong winds blow, the tree bends and sways. This pressure strengthens its roots and trunk, making it more resilient. Similarly, when we experience pressure in life, whether from deadlines, unexpected challenges, or personal struggles, we are forced to adjust, problem solve, and develop new skills. This adaptation strengthens our character, capabilities, and wisdom. One reason adaptation requires pressure is that humans are creatures of habit. We naturally gravitate toward what is familiar because it requires less effort and energy. Change demands conscious intention, effort, and sometimes discomfort. Pressure creates a sense of urgency that breaks the inertia of routine. It forces us to face problems head-on rather than postpone them. When the status quo is no longer sustainable, pressure compels us to innovate and find new solutions. In many areas of life, pressure serves as a mirror reflecting what is not working. For example, in a work environment, pressure from tight deadlines or shifting market demands reveals weaknesses in processes or skills. This recognition is the first step toward meaningful change. Without pressure, these issues might remain hidden and growth would stagnate. Similarly, personal pressure, such as health challenges, relationship conflicts, or financial difficulties, can prompt deep self-reflection and motivate transformative actions. It's important to distinguish between different kinds of pressure. Some pressure is productive, encouraging growth and resilience, while excessive or prolonged pressure without support can lead to burnout or despair. The key is finding a balance where pressure challenges us enough to adapt, but not so much that it breaks us. This balance allows us to build what psychologists call stress resilience, the ability to cope with difficulties and bounce back stronger. Pressure also drives innovation and creativity. When faced with constraints or limitations, people often find novel ways to overcome obstacles. This is why some of the most groundbreaking inventions and ideas emerge during times of crisis or intense competition. The pressure to survive, compete, or solve urgent problems pushes us to think differently and explore possibilities we might have ignored in more comfortable circumstances. Moreover, adaptation under pressure is closely tied to mindset. People with a growth mindset see pressure as an opportunity to learn and improve. They view challenges as temporary and solvable rather than as insurmountable barriers. This mindset transforms pressure from a source of fear into a driver of motivation. It encourages persistence and openness to change, which are essential for adaptation. In contrast, a fixed mindset perceives pressure as a threat to self, worth, and identity. When under pressure, those with a fixed mindset may shut down, avoid risks, or blame external circumstances rather than adapting. This response limits growth and keeps individuals stuck in ineffective patterns. Cultivating a growth mindset is therefore crucial for harnessing the power of pressure to fuel adaptation. On a broader scale, societies and organizations also adapt under pressure. History shows that social progress, technological advancements, and cultural shifts often accelerate during times of upheaval, wars, economic crises, or social movements. These pressures disrupt complacency and force collective adaptation. The same principle applies in businesses that must innovate to survive changing markets or customer needs. Pressure compels systems, not just individuals, to evolve. In practical terms, embracing pressure as a driver of adaptation means shifting how we respond to stress and challenges. Instead of resisting or avoiding pressure, we can learn to see it as a signal that growth is needed. This perspective helps us approach difficult situations with curiosity and problem-solving energy rather than fear and avoidance. It also means developing strategies to manage pressure effectively. This could include building support networks, practicing stress reduction techniques, and setting realistic goals that encourage steady progress. By managing pressure well, we create conditions where adaptation can flourish rather than falter. Ultimately, adaptation only happens under pressure because pressure disrupts complacency and triggers the need for change. It pushes us to develop new skills, rethink our assumptions, and stretch beyond our comfort zones. Without pressure, we risk stagnation and missed opportunities for growth. So when you encounter pressure, whether it's from external demands or internal struggles, remember that it is a powerful force inviting you to adapt and evolve. Instead of fearing pressure, lean into it with the mindset that it is shaping you into a stronger, wiser, and more capable version of yourself. Embrace the challenges, learn from the discomfort, and allow pressure to be the catalyst that propels your growth forward. The journey of growth is never a straight line. It is filled with ups and downs, successes and setbacks. One of the most crucial elements that determine whether we continue moving forward or give up is resilience, the ability to bounce back from difficulties, adapt to change, and keep going despite obstacles. Resilience is not something we are simply born with. It is a skill we develop over time, especially when we embrace discomfort and uncertainty as part of the growth process. Growth demands resilience because without it, the challenges that inevitably arise can become stopping points rather than stepping stones. When we embark on a path of growth, we often face situations that test our limits. These challenges can take many forms: failure, rejection, criticism, loss, or unexpected change. Each of these moments has the potential to derail us, to shake our confidence and make us question our worth or direction. Resilience is what allows us to absorb these shocks without breaking. It's the internal strength that helps us see setbacks not as permanent defeats, but as temporary hurdles that can be overcome with effort and learning. One of the key ways resilience supports growth is by fostering a mindset that views failure as feedback rather than final judgment. Instead of interpreting failure as proof that we are not good enough or that our dreams are unattainable, resilient people see failure as an opportunity to learn and improve. This shift in perspective is powerful because it keeps motivation alive and encourages persistence. When you know that setbacks are part of the process and not the end, you are more likely to take risks, try again, and ultimately grow. Resilience also helps manage the emotional impact of discomfort. Growth often involves facing fears, doubts, and insecurities that can feel overwhelming. Without resilience, these emotions can lead to avoidance or giving up. But resilience builds emotional regulation, allowing us to stay grounded and focused even in tough times. This emotional strength is like a muscle that grows stronger each time we face adversity and choose to move forward despite it. Furthermore, resilience is closely linked to adaptability. Growth requires not only persistence, but also the flexibility to change course when needed. Sometimes the path we envision is not the one that leads to success. Resilient individuals are willing to pivot, try new approaches, and embrace change rather than cling stubbornly to old habits or plans. This adaptability, fueled by resilience, keeps growth dynamic and responsive to real-world conditions. Support systems also play a vital role in building resilience. While resilience is often thought of as an internal quality, it is greatly strengthened by connection with others. Friends, family, mentors, and communities provide encouragement, perspective, and practical help during difficult times. Knowing you are not alone in your struggles can boost your resilience and make challenges feel more manageable. Growth is rarely a solo journey. It thrives in environments where support and vulnerability coexist. Another important aspect of resilience is self-compassion. When we face setbacks, it's easy to fall into harsh self-criticism, which undermines confidence and motivation. Resilience involves treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, recognizing that everyone encounters difficulties and that growth takes time. This compassionate mindset helps maintain a positive relationship with oneself, which is crucial for sustained effort and progress. Building resilience is an ongoing process. It requires conscious effort to develop habits and mindsets that support bouncing back from adversity. Practices such as reflecting on past successes, setting realistic goals, maintaining physical health, and cultivating optimism all contribute to greater resilience. Importantly, resilience doesn't mean never feeling overwhelmed or discouraged. It means having the tools and mindset to recover and keep moving forward. In the context of growth, resilience acts as the bridge between discomfort and achievement. When discomfort arises, whether through failure, criticism, or uncertainty, resilience allows us to stay the course, learn from the experience, and continue growing. Without resilience, discomfort can become a roadblock. With resilience, it becomes a stepping stone. This relationship between growth and resilience can be seen in many inspiring stories of individuals who overcame significant challenges to achieve their goals. Their resilience enabled them to persist where others might have quit, turning obstacles into opportunities for learning and development. Their journeys remind us that resilience is not just about enduring hardship, but about using those experiences as fuel for transformation. Ultimately, Resilience is what enables us to keep growing even when the path is hard and progress feels slow. It is the inner strength that sustains us through discomfort and uncertainty, empowering us to take risks, learn from failures, and adapt to new challenges. Growth demands resilience because it requires us to face difficulties head-on and continue moving forward with courage and determination. So, as you pursue your own journey of growth, remember to cultivate resilience. Embrace challenges as opportunities to build strength, practice self-compassion, seek support, and maintain a mindset that views setbacks as part of the learning process. With resilience, you transform discomfort from a threat into a powerful force that propels you toward your fullest potential. Growth is not easy, but with resilience, it is always possible.